Have you ever stopped to think about what really shapes your life? It's probably not the big public moments everyone sees. It's more likely the small, hidden choices you make when you think nobody's watching. And that's the powerful idea we're going to dive into today. So let's just ask the question straight up. What really determines the harvest of your life? Is it those big achievements that get all the likes and applause? Or is it the tiny private decisions? The quiet moments of faithfulness or those little compromises that, over time, really shape who you are. All right, to get a handle on this, let's look at a classic cautionary tale. We're talking about King David from the book of 2 Samuel. His story is just this incredible reminder that huge moral failures, they don't just happen out of the blue. Nope, they start with the small, seemingly harmless permissions we give ourselves. Look at how this played out. David's fall didn't start with murder. It started with something way more subtle, leisure. Just a moment of downtime when he probably should have been with his army. But that one choice, to stay behind, to step away from his duty, it created a vacuum. And temptation just rushed right in. That leisure turned into lust. Then, that lust needed deception to cover it up. Deception spiraled into a terrible injustice against one of his most loyal soldiers, Uriah. And from there, it ended in murder. It's absolutely terrifying to see how one tiny compromise can unleash a total catastrophe. There's actually a theological name for this whole dynamic. It's called a vicious circle. The Catechism of the Catholic Church explains that sin creates a proclivity to sin. It's a fancy way of saying that every wrong choice makes the next wrong choice easier. It's like you're building this negative momentum, this spiritual gravity that just keeps pulling you down, making it harder and harder to choose what's right. That is exactly the trap King David fell into. So how do you possibly break a cycle like that? Well, the answer comes from David himself later in his life. This plea from Psalm 51, it's the only way out. It is radical humility. It's him admitting he's powerless and just crying out for God to do the one thing he couldn't do for himself, create a clean heart. That's the only real response to this kind of destructive path. Okay, but David's path isn't the only one out there, thank goodness. In complete contrast, the Gospel of Mark shows us the kingdom's path. And this isn't a story about compounding destruction. No, it's about powerful, mysterious growth. And it's perfectly captured in the image of a tiny mustard seed. Jesus basically says the kingdom of God is like a seed that grows all by itself. We don't always see what's happening. It works mysteriously, it works patiently, it works in hidden ways. But from the absolute smallest, most insignificant start, like one little mustard seed, it grows into something huge and powerful, a place where people can find refuge and shelter. And here's the key. The power is in the seed, not the person who planted it. So if David's story shows us the vicious circle of sin, the mustard seed shows us God's alternative, transformative grace. You can think of this as the unearned power boost that takes our smallest, most faithful choices, our little seeds of doing the right thing, and grows them into something way beyond what we could ever do on our own. It's the secret ingredient, It's what makes the mustard seed grow. So when you put these two paths side by side, man, the contrast is just crystal clear. David's path, it starts with a hidden sin, a small remission, and it leads straight to destruction. The kingdom's path, on the other hand, starts with hidden grace, with quiet faithfulness, and it grows into abundant life. This is the whole point, right here. The final harvest of our lives is determined by the hidden seeds we're planting, day in and day out. Now, I know this can all sound a bit abstract, so let's look at a real-world example of someone who actually lived this kingdom path, Saint Martina of Rome. She is such a powerful model of what this quiet fidelity looks like in real life. You could almost say she was a living mustard seed. So where David chose to compromise, Saint Martina chose integrity. She just flat out refused to negotiate with sin or to trade truth for an easier life. And by holding on to that unbreakable faithfulness in all the small, ordinary moments, her faith just grew stronger and stronger. All those little choices prepared her for incredible courage and allowed God's grace to work through her in a huge way. She really did become a living mustard seed. Okay, so this brings it all right back home to us. The stories of David and St. Martina, they're not just ancient history lessons. They're a direct challenge for us to look at our own lives. The real spiritual battlefield isn't some epic, dramatic moment. It's found in the small, everyday choices we make. So, what does this actually look like for you and me? Well, it means being vigilant, right? Especially in those moments of leisure, the exact place where David stumbled. It means guarding your heart and making a conscious choice to plant small seeds, a quiet act of kindness, a moment of honesty when nobody's looking. Our job is simple. We just plant the seed. We have to trust that God's going to make it grow. And that really leaves us with this one final question. This isn't about some massive life overhaul you have to start tomorrow. It's much simpler. It's about today. What one small seed of faithfulness or obedience or love will you choose to plant right now, in secret, trusting that God can turn it into an amazing harvest?